got a little coffee. We slowed down on the coffee, so we may not have much coffee. I feel like Mr. Rogers coming in and putting on his sweater. See how you like that. We'll have to trim that off some of the versions. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglash for the WDMA. Thinking about mail today. Here we go. Okay, so we'll start off with Tom Fishburne. Hybrid work. Isn't it great to be back in the office where we can meet face to face again? And the co-worker across the table, or across the little gap, says, "Sorry, I was on mute." Yes. Of course, I'm reading, some of the vision is that we'll have VR helmets on for office meetings, whether you're at home or at work. You can recreate your office conference room, and so you'll look like you're all seated at the table, or you can look like furries and monsters and whatever else you want to look like, a chipmunk. Anyway, Alvin the Chipmunk, yes, that would be great. So last week Tom was talking about the messy, mushy middle, and that's, of course, that's a technical term for a time of change, a time of experimentation. And Andrew Mawson, Dr. Andrew Mawson of AWA, which I don't know what it is, but I'll look it up, said people tried coming into the office, and when they got there, they found all they were doing was being on Zoom calls. Yeah, okay, that probably is true. I don't know. I don't do that kind of stuff very much. I try to get clients to use some kind of a camera, and most of the time they want their camera off. Okay. I leave mine on because I've got such a quality setup. For those of you who don't know, I bought 2 desk lamps for $30 and put coffee filters over the light bulbs to diffuse them. Fancy stuff. And this is about a $3 microphone. I took some coat hanger and made a whatever that's called, pop filter. Yeah, that's what it's called, right? The official term. Anyway, 9 in 10 employers in the UK are now operating in some kind of hybrid model. The most common one was 2 or 3 days in the office, and that's okay unless you have people that have to be there all the time, and they might resent the freedom and flexibility of others. And so you got to work that out a little bit. We were talking about that at the CEO breakfast at Namoa, that the warehouse workers had to stay through the pandemic, all masked up and couldn't breathe and couldn't go near each other, and still had to keep shipping boxes. So they were a little resentful, that the other people got all that flexibility. And IT, in some cases, still hasn't come back, because they can work remote. Now, back in the 90s, my brother decided he wanted to go to Russia, live in Russia. And we were in the middle of Musician's Friend. We were in the middle of just building a custom system for Musician's Friend. And, they gave us their date on about January 1st, and we had to be in the mail by the 10th of February. It was a pretty tight deadline. We're better now. We don't customize as much. We have a more flexible piece of software that he wrote. But anyway, so I was shocked and scared to death about working remote. This was in about 1997, and it was about April the year, and I said, "Well, when do you want to go?" And he said, "Well, maybe like September." I said, "Okay. Why don't we try you not coming in the office at all?" He's the IT guy, and see how it goes, right? And it didn't go that well, because I'd come in the morning and he'd change something in the middle of the night, and my machine wasn't working, and so I'd write him, but he liked to come in the middle of the night. And so then he'd say, "Try this." The next day I'd come in and he'd say, "Try this," and that wouldn't work. And finally I resorted to my own laptop that I ran mostly however I wanted it. and move files onto it. But when he moved to Moscow, it worked really well because he was about 8 hours, 7 hours before us. And so, you know, he liked to work at like 7 at night. So he was still on from 7 to 7 in the morning or so. And we were there and he was there. And it worked much better to have him remote in Moscow than it did to have him in Milwaukee and remote. And that's what he wanted to do. Now, we tried an office in India. We had some really smart people, masters in technology and stuff. And that didn't work very well at all because we had that the time difference was greater. It didn't line up the same. And it would just go on. And they didn't really understand our business either, which Ted did. So the workplace itself is being reinvented right now, kind of like the Big Bang. This is from Rich Barton, Zillow CEO. Okay, I go on Zillow every now and then to see what the neighbors' houses are worth. Okay, some companies are nixing open plan offices in favor of old school private offices. I remember when I was at the consulting firm, one of the reasons I quit was because we were moving offices and I had a private office. And in those days, you could actually smoke a pipe in your office. It was wonderful. It was like the golden age of office work. And now you have to stand outside in the cold in the winter. But they were moving to the open system with the low cubicles, and everybody had a cubicle, and then they had a couple of private conference rooms. And I just didn't like it at all because I talk loud. I'm on the phone a lot, and I just didn't think it was appropriate. And so I left, and I went to work for one of my clients. And that was a hilarious, great time. I loved it. I probably should have stayed there. It was an ad specialty company, and we grew from about 10 million to 20 million in the 2 or 3 years I was there. It was really great. But anyway, others are remodeling offices into collaboration centers with no private workspaces at all. I think that's kind of what Tom is showing up above here. There's no privacy, just open source, which you might want to get in a real room. I think there is a point to some kind of privacy, certainly for your client's sake, if nothing else. You know, most of the secrets that get leaked are leaked by someone who has authorization for a time to the secrets. But the more they get shared, the more difficult it is to keep a lid on that because people are, especially in marketing, are always coming and going. Some experiments take the form of top-down mandates that risk amplifying the worst of both worlds, the inconvenience of in-person and the isolation of remote. And as we said, but there's going to be some trial and error. Ultimately, I think the most lasting solutions will come bottom up from the teams themselves. And that's how we found it out. Gina Shelby? Sorry, Gina. CCO. What's a CCO? At Qualtrics? And what's a Qualtrics? I'll have to look this up. Put it, we've learned based on what people do. Maybe we end up creating more conference space. Maybe we need more desks. But I love the idea that we have a little flexibility. You know, I actually called Ted's pastor, who I knew. I mean, we were friends. And I said, you know, tell Ted not to leave for Russia in the middle of this software project. Now, Ted thought we were done, but of course, software is almost never done, and it was full of bugs. I mean, not full of them, but there were enough bugs that I'm glad he didn't leave. But the pastor, who was also a medical doctor, said, well, why can't he work remote? So we were working remote in the 90s. In the mid-90s, we would get on Yahoo, and we could do a camera, and he would have one light bulb up in the top of his room. There wasn't much. It wasn't fancy in Russia in the 90s. Anyway, so let's go on. Why mail is a good bet? Maybe I'll wait for that for tomorrow. It's a good article, but I want to get to summer. I was trying to get to this on Friday. Okay, Summer lays out a couple of ideas for the holidays. Excellent. Have fun. 4 ideas for your holiday direct mail. First is fun. Okay, everyone needs a laugh. How can you make them laugh with your holiday direct mail? And Mary up at Amazon Graphics is excellent at this. She has some of the funniest Christmas cards, and she comes up with this stuff year after year. I don't know how she does it. Excellent, excellent, very funny. I once sent out a fax at like midnight on Christmas Eve. Little did I realize that people had fax machines in their bedrooms, in their home office. Oh, oopsie. Oh, I got a few nasty calls about that. Oh, at least it was engagement. Anyway, create a mail piece that's not just an offer, but a really fun experience. And she often has some kind of engaging little puzzle or prize you can win or something. Now, Mike Gunderson at Gunderson Direct sent one out around the holidays. I think it was after the holidays, and it was a jump rope and a fundraising experience you could have to lose weight. And I'm not much for jumping these days, so that wasn't, for me, that wouldn't have been a fun experience. So I declined the offer to get my own lovely little jump rope. But get creative. You can have a lot of fun. I mean, at least I remember it, right? I remember Mike's stuff. So discounts, remember, it's all in the wording of the offer. And this is so true. And this is why you really want to test. So a higher percentage off a lower cost item is seen as a better deal than a lower percentage off a high priced item. So when, in all the tests I've ever run, if you're going to do a percentage of off on a high priced item, so let's say you've got $1,000 piece of furniture or something, and 10% off is $100, you're almost always $100 will beat 10%. It sounds way bigger, I know, and that's, you got to get in trouble because like I think it was A&W came up with a third pound burger to go against McDonald's quarter pounder, and it didn't sell at all. And later in focus groups, they asked people, well, why wouldn't you want a third pound burger versus a quarter pound burger? And they said, well, a quarter pound is bigger. 1/4 is bigger than 1/3. So you want to test this stuff. It does make sense to test. Okay, people, make sure you're targeting the right people. And you never can really make sure, but it was a great example that Summer gave was a Jewish family. You might send your Christmas greeting to a Jewish family. Now, most everybody that I know, the Jewish friends I have, say they're not offended by Merry Christmas at all. Dennis Prager did a whole show on how he thinks it's perfectly fine for Christians to say Merry Christmas, and Jews can say Happy Hanukkah. And I'm fascinated with Hanukkah. It's a fascinating miracle. But anyway, AB Data here in town, Bruce Arbit, he made a whole life career out of spotting Jewish surnames. And so you could run your list against his data set and see if you're, but it's not 100% by any means, not by any means. And so, probably if it's funny, it's okay. So, but it's a tough thing. I mean, if you absolutely know they're Jewish, then set it aside and write them a special note, I would say. But to automate that, Summer, do you know how to automate that besides run it up against AB data? I don't know the answer to that one. Sharing. Offer a fun way for people to share savings with their friends. You can tie in social media to expand your reach. I've seen elf contests and Santa Claus contests. Show us your Santa Claus outfit or show us your Christmas decorations. And there's a lot of stuff you can do there. So it's a special time of the year. You don't want to just send a postcard says summer, but I would say better a postcard than nothing. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. Be extra creative for the holidays to not only stand out in the mailbox, but get the people to respond. And don't wait for December. You can mail on Halloween and Thanksgiving too. So, test different offers. Amen, Summer. She's listening to my drum beat here. Okay, so anyway, like and share. For the holidays, give me a call, 15 minutes, no charge, consultation.